All right, welcome to day 3 of the Life Coach Intro course. Let's jump right into basic coaching skills. So, today we're going to look at 3 different areas within basic coaching skills. We're going to look at the use of questions, using paraphrasing, and something that you should never say. But don't worry, because I'm going to share with you exactly what you can use instead of saying this. So, first, let's go into questions. Well, questions is one of the kind of the basic, fundamental, very introductory skills that life coaches use when working with their clients. It does a variety of things. One is it helps you gather more information so that you can make a very detailed analysis of what's going on. Also, it helps the client many times kind of clarify in their mind, and they see the issue from a different viewpoint. So, knowing what to ask is very, very important. Knowing what kind of question to ask your client will help direct you and the client in your sessions that you have with them. So, for instance, if your client is coming to you and they are presenting with an issue of wanting to start a career outside of their job. They've been employed for a long time and they're ready to make that leap. And then they just kind of leave it at that. And you're like, okay, well, that's good. It kind of gives me an idea of where we're going. However, you need more information as a life coach other than, okay, they've been an employee for X number of years and now they want to be self-employed. Well, you're going to want to know, how long have they been thinking about this? Are there any fields that they've thought about as far as starting and opening up a business? Um, do they have any kind of skills that will transfer? Have they tried before? What are their goals in establishing this? When do they see this happening? Is it within the next 6 months or the next 6 years? And so we need to know what the right questions are to kind of fill in the gaps to all of this. And it sounds very simple, but questions for us and for the client open up kind of Pandora's box, a box that we really want to go into. Because, let's say that you said, well, what are some skills that you have from your job that will transfer into working for yourself? And they were like, I've never thought about that. And so it gives them an opportunity to explore something that maybe they've never even thought about themselves. And so it's a wonderful thing. And it also gives you that information that you're going to be able to keep track of so that you can better help that client going forward, so that you can help them develop their plan of action and be able to set those steps that they need to take and being able to hold them accountable. And there may be some things that they're missing that are going to cause problems or, be more likely that they won't succeed. So you're going to want to help get them that extra assistance that they need to fill in the gap of those skills that they're kind of lacking. Also, with questions, when you ask a question of a client, be prepared to sit and listen closely. I've seen new life coaches ask a question, and then once the client is trying to give an answer, they jump in too quickly and they kind of derail them, and they don't allow the client to kind of fully answer the question, or they are thinking about what their next question will be and they don't listen to what the client said. And so both of those issues can be a problem. So one is, not being able to allow the client to fully finish, the answering. It's a skill that many times most people don't even think about, having. It's like, what? Giving them time. Yet things happen within a session as a life coach, and you may be kind of, unaware that you're not giving them enough time, or maybe unaware that you're not fully listening, and that can cause a real problem. So developing that awareness of them. Also, if you're you're asking a question that you've already, asked, that shows the client that what you're not even listening to me. So be prepared to listen closely to the answer that they're giving. Don't try to think too far ahead in your mind. Be present with the client. And, don't ask a question that you've already, had answered before. And this will help you along as you develop your rapport and as you start to work with the client. I listed here knowing what not to ask, and sometimes it's a little confusing because new students may say, well, how do I know what not to ask? Well, and it could be something that's very personal to the client, and let's say it's a brand new client and you don't have a lot of kind of trust and rapport with this client. It might be a client that you've only worked with once or twice, and it could be a session where they're talking about, relationship troubles with their husband. And so maybe you have a really, good question about that husband, but it might be something that they're not ready to answer. And so knowing what questions to ask and when to ask is very, very important, and not trying to gather too much of kind of intimate personal information too early in your relationship with your client is very, very important, because they may feel rushed, or they may not feel like, they don't know you well enough to kind of get into that. Although they came to you wanting answers for this, just kind of take it slow. Many times, not asking a question is fine, because later on, that client will actually answer something that you had in the back of your mind and you never even needed to ask. And so that's a really good thing. So don't try to push and ask, too much kind of really, really personal questions, too quickly up front. And those are, let me give you a clear example of something. So if a client comes to you and she is, let's say she's 35 years old, she's been married, for 10 years, and she's struggling with, having really good communication skills with her husband. Um, and so you may just generally ask, well, can you give some examples of, what were some of those struggles you've had with your husband? And that would be okay. However, asking, well, did you, while you were, getting into a quarrel with your husband, did he ever hit you? So, that would be something that you wouldn't want to go there. I mean, and that might be something that she talks about. Again, let the client talk about more kind of intimate details as they feel more comfortable with you. Don't ask too early. And so that's a good kind of example that comes to mind when doing that. Now, let's move on and let's look at paraphrasing. So, what in the world is paraphrasing? Well, paraphrasing is when a client shares some information with you. You in turn take that information and you briefly summarize it, and you got to put it in your own words and you say it back to them. And I'll give you some examples in a minute, but the reason that you use it is for a couple. There's a couple of key points here. You're going to use it, one, to let the client know that you're listening, that what they're saying actually is resonating with you, that you're not kind of daydreaming and thinking about, an upcoming vacation or whatnot. Because sometimes clients may feel like, okay, I've been talking to my coach for 30 minutes. They really haven't said anything. So I don't know if they're present here with me or they're out to lunch. They're in their mind. They're thinking about something else. So being able to paraphrase and put in your own words what a client has just said is important, to give them that information and kind of that confidence in knowing that you are listening and that you understand. So those are the two things there, that you're listening, one, and that you understand what they're trying to say. Also, how paraphrasing really is super important is that it gives them an ability to take it even further. So, for example, let's say that a client was talking for about 10 minutes about how they've been thinking about, becoming self-employed and starting their own business. And they've been thinking about this for a couple of years and they never took the leap. And there was always a fear that, you know, other people in their family and friends may not support them and they may fail. So you may kind of summarize it and say, so what I hear you saying is that, you know, this is something that you've thought about for quite a while. And the fear of failure seems to get in the way, as well as your interpretation of how others are going to think about you. Is that true? And then the client will say, yeah, absolutely. You know, the being fearful of failure and kind of having that, it's always something that I've always had. And they may go on and on and on. So it gives them an outlet to kind of take it further. And so there's kind of the road kind of splits because there's two levels to that. There's the fear factor that they can go down and further explore. And then there's also the issue of worrying about what others think. And so again, it lets them know that you're thinking about being very close in attention to what they're saying. You understand what they're saying, and it gives them an opportunity to further that and to go deeper. So that is how powerful paraphrasing can be. Now, let's look at something that you should never say. Well, then first, let me start off with a story. So I have a friend. His name is Todd, and he and his wife, when they were pregnant with their first child, um, she ended up delivering, and the child did not survive. And he had told me a story of, you know, how this was very just kind of devastating for him and his wife. And he and his wife kind of pulled back from everyone, didn't respond to telephone, to email, to anything, and they just wanted to be by themselves to just kind of heal. And so when I had spoken with him many months after it happened, he said, you know, Tim, we went, you know, back to the hospital, you know, a couple of weeks after it happened, and we had some things to do, and we met a couple at the hospital who had found out that we had lost our child. And he said, the gentleman said, you know, I know exactly how you feel. And my friend said that it set him off, that it made him very angry. And I was like, wow, like, okay, why? And he said, because that person, he doesn't know how I feel about losing my child. He lost his child, but he didn't lose my child. And so it really kind of hit home. And especially as life coaches, when we're trying to connect with our clients and we're trying to build rapport, many times we're looking at similarities in what we have with our clients and how that will help build trust. And so it's easy as a life coach to say this to our clients that maybe they've experienced something, you know, a loss of a family member or a pet or a job or whatever it might be. And then we jump in, we say, oh, I know how you feel. Well, it can totally kind of put walls and barriers up between us and our clients when we said it in a way that it shows that we care and that, you know, we're trying to engage them. But so once my friend Todd had shared this story about, you know, this gentleman saying, oh, I know how you feel because we lost our child, it made my friend very upset. And it just, he said, we just walked away. He said, it just, you know, I just grabbed my wife's hand and I said, come on, you know, we need to go. And we just walked away. So when you have a client in a session, in a coaching session, and they may end up in their mind just kind of check out because you said, I know how you feel. And so it prematurely ends the conversation, and it does not allow the client to expand on their own experience. Okay, and then another problem with this is that it could easily, especially within a coaching session, it could easily shift the focus away from the client and onto you and your struggles. And a client may end up wanting to kind of help you, and you may have a significant amount of pain with whatever you just shared. And then now the roles have reversed. The client has become the coach, and you as the coach have become the client. It happens, and it happens a lot. And so one of the ways that you can help facilitate the conversation, help connect with your client, and help them to elaborate on what's going on with them and how this was such a devastating experience or just a very difficult time for them, one of the things that you can say instead of "I know how you feel," you should say, "Wow, please tell me what that was like." So you can see the difference when someone says to you, "Please tell me what that was like for you." It opens the doors. It gives you permission to share whatever it is you're feeling, to share more details and give further information. However, when you say as a life coach to your client, "I know how you feel," it may close doors. It may turn them away. It may shut that conversation down. It may shift the focus to you. You become, instead of the life coach, you become the client. But instead of saying, "I know how you feel," say, "Wow, please tell me what that was like." Because then that gives them permission to expand, to talk about their thoughts and to talk about their feelings. And as a life coach, those are more advanced kind of steps that we take in how we, work with our clients and helping them understand the impact that their thoughts have on feelings and etc. But this is so, so very important. And there are many coaches out there who are trained, who've been doing it for a while, and they still fall in this trap of saying, "I know how you feel." And so I've just shared something really powerful for you, a really great coaching skill that you can use when working with clients. So that's the end of day three of your training. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you have any questions about any of the day's models, about any of the lessons, about anything you've learned, feel free to reach out to me at tim@coachwherever.com. Again, that's tim@coachwherever.com. And I would be more than happy to answer your question and to kind of help you any way that I can. Again, thank you again and have a great day.